Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Hello. I think it's live. I think it's working, but I can't see on this side because there's 11 seconds left. But there's a control thing, and I'm making a lot of experiments today. So I'm happy to be here. And welcome to the energy sketch. So instead of like, now I'm gonna mute my iPad. Uh, Hello. Welcome to the energy sketch. Uh, New experiment, live stream today on youtube.com/at energy sketch at 12:12 p.m. because, well, why not? And let me apologize for the technical difficulties. There's probably a delay with my talking and my video because I'm doing a funky thing with my iPhone and Touch Designer and some technical stuff that separates out me from the depth using depth imaging from the Face ID camera, but that's a topic for a whole other thing. And I do other live streams on twitch.tv/Michael Johnson TV, where I play around with Blender and Touch Designer and all kinds of weird and wonderful, magical things like that. But today we are live for the energy sketch. Why 1212? If you've been following me for a while, if you're one of my blessed, and I'm so thankful for the 104, not that I count, we don't count, but we do count. Numbers matter, but numbers don't matter. We'll get into that another time. If you are one of the blessed followers of the channel, thank you so much for your support and your encouragement. So, the Energy Sketch was born maybe 2 years ago. No, well, in 2023, yeah, 2023, I did 48, 50, 51, or 52 weekly episodes, 48 weekly episodes. Every single week at Monday, 12:12, there was a video that was going out. They were typically pre-scheduled, pre-made, and then scheduled to go live in a nice go live thing on YouTube. And then I would watch the video and I would chat with the occasional person who would come by. Typically, one of my dear, blessed, friendly, and lovely and wonderful colleagues who supported me in so many different things that I've getting up to. So then, kind of got burned out, I guess. You could put a story around that in any way that you want. Towards the end, I had the pleasure of doing a stream, an interview, podcast, let's call it interview, with my friend, former colleague, team leader, and former boss, coach, and still my good friend, Hayden Smith. With his startup FEX Energy. And we had a great time talking about stuff. A few technical difficulties because I had this vision of using this whiteboard. This is the whiteboard. I've got my little pen tablet here going like this. I love this thing, the pen tablet on the whiteboard. So I've got some hotkeys and I can just sketch some stuff. But we're just saying welcome, and we're getting into it today. And we got coffee. So we can also have, yeah, if we're not on CBC, I should probably hide the logo, but whoopsie. Yeah, just riffing with a coffee, getting into the flow. So I was talking about how at the end of 2023, felt a bit kind of burned out with the podcasting. I mean, it was a rigorous schedule, and I'm very proud. It's a whole other word that we can get into another time, but I am happy with the way that I managed all of the workflows and developing the idea, from the idea to the editing and doing it on a live stream and then cutting it down and then issuing it, and always having something ready every week at 12:12. This was creatively, for me, this was such a valuable and good thing to have, really, a schedule, a drumbeat of production, and the thing goes out at 12:12, whether you're happy with it or not, whether you like it or not. Yeah, so it's a challenge to get a pipeline of interesting things going and progressing them in such a way that you always have something that you can get through the door and get it out. And I mean, I took a long vacation in 2023 in the summer when I went on a trip west coast. Saw so many friends, Vancouver, Seattle, Oregon, Portland, San Francisco, San Diego, LA. Revisited some of my old haunts and just had a really great time. And meanwhile, I had 4 weeks pre-scheduled Energy Sketch episodes. So I've been missing that because what happened, and I want to put a big story around it, but I was doing these live streams, and then basically got a troll on one of the live streams, and I completely freaked out and then stopped live streaming. Like, which thinking about it now retrospectively is a bit of an overreaction. But anyway, maybe I just needed a break also. There's something about going live, being on stage. There's a part of me that just that gets nourished by that. I mean, I've done so many different things in my life that involve, theater, choir, singing, improv, comedy. I took a comedy writing class at the École nationale de l'humour here in Montreal, Quebec, where in the night classes, night school, this is where the great comedians of Quebec culture really have trained and developed. So it was really an honor to be part of that. And it was damn hard, but it was super cool. It was like the science of comedy. I mean, they just broke it down into like a structure, like 12 types of jokes. And we had to practice over and over again each type of joke. So that was pretty cool. But what are we going to be talking about today? So I got this is how I roll. I got my little note card thing happening here. I wanted to talk about polarization. So let's write this down. Polarization around the dialogue. I mean, specifically around, right, energy in Canada, let's call it. This is a bit thick, the brush here. Energy in Canada. And so that's topic one. Just make a short little agenda. And I will be quitting promptly at 12:48 p.m. or in advance of that, we shall see. So no, again, yes, disclaimer, hashtag disclaimer. Listen, the disclaimer is that this podcast, this stream is in no way or any shape, or form related to, sponsored, supported by, or any of that by my workplace. I work in energy. All opinions are my own. Do not use any of this information for detailed technical calculations. Although, of course, I'm an engineer. I'm into the details. I want to provide numbers and data and information that is of good quality. That being said, we're riffing here. We're just streaming live. Stream of consciousness, streaming a stream of consciousness of takes, my take, a hot take on things. And generally, we're just going to be sketching on the whiteboard, right? So sketch, this is a sketch, shall not be used for detailed project development, technology assessment, anything like that. We're just sketching here. So we want to talk about polarization around the dialogue of the energy transition. There's a few points there that I'll get into in a little bit. And I want to highlight my publication along with dear valued partners and colleagues at McGill. This is on, let's call it the general topic of metal fuels. So one of my favorite topics. And I haven't really talked about that actually in any of the streams. I mean, I talked about iron as a fuel in one of the episodes back in 2023, iron. And then I talked about it again. Oh my God. Oh, oh, sorry. I'm getting some audio here that devices are disconnecting and connecting. I hope you can still hear me. I wish I had a sort of audio monitor thing. I think we're good. Two devices connected. This is my cool new Jabra Bluetooth. It connects to my computer and my phone or pad or other Bluetooth device, which is really cool. So this is what we got on for the topics of today. Now, just a note, this is the moderator talking. The chat is limited to people who have been subscribed to the channel for at least 10 minutes. And this is just for our safety, for our protection in the community in case randos, trolls, generally misfits show up in the chat and want to spam it and all this stuff. So it's just a sort of modest protection for our little community here. So please, if you're going to chat, let's be respectful and let's have fun. So let's jump into and just take a breath, take a little drink. So polarization, dialogue, energy in Canada. I've got a few. Oh my God, there's a lot of text here. Here's what we're going to talk about. So there's this group porte-parole. Okay, porte-parole, and specifically Annabelle Soutar. It was highlighted. I need a highlight pen. This is interesting. We're gonna learn as we go here with this Excalidraw business. What I want to do is just highlight stuff here. So I want to make like a vibrant yellow highlighting color. Oh my God. No. There's no highlighter in here? This is annoying. Anyway, we'll just have, no, this is not, that's not what I want. Come on, get some nice, super vibrant yellows happening here. Super bright yellow. Why is that so dark? Oh, it's because it's black on black. Oh, okay. We need to go. Ah, technical difficulties. That's okay. We're just going to go with, we'll stick with the white. No, this is not white. I want real white. White. Okay. Good. Thank you. That's still not white, but that's okay. And what the hell? Annabelle Soutar, the playwright, founder of this group called Porte Parole, which is a Montreal, Quebec based documentary theater company. And they're famous specifically for one of their productions, which is called J'aime Hydro. I love Hydro. Okay, it's with one of my favorite actresses in Quebec, which is Christine Beaulieu. And it's a 4-hour documentary piece of theater that's also been made into a podcast, a book, various other things. And she explores like the history of hydro Quebec in terms of, you know, the nationalization of electricity in Canada, construction of all these large hydroelectric dams in the north of the province, a lot about the challenges, the enjeux social with, you know, local Innu and other indigenous communities of the north whose lands were essentially flooded, whose traditional way of life was kind of decimated. Let's say, again, I'm not sure the words to use exactly there. I'm just riffing here. You know, they're now, let's say, confined to villages, right? They're historically nomadic people, translating, following the herds and hunting and gathering and stuff. It's the whole story of it is just fascinating. But this production, J'aime Hydro, was really good, really powerful, and a very interesting deep dive into all of the history of Hydro Quebec and a lot of the issues around it. I mean, we're building new. Well, we just built a new dam, and there's discussions on the way of building even more hydroelectric dams. Like we're down to like the last few wild rivers in the country, in the province, that are still being talked about being dammed over. So it's an interesting enjeu there that we could get into at another point, another live stream. But here we're just riffing. So this is an article now. Porte Parole. They've done another one, another production that they're touring around. It's called The Assembly. So The Assembly is a production, a documentary theater production that is super cool. I went to see it in French. I saw it in English with a friend, with for one, with a wife, my wife, and the other one. And it was around like identity politics, race, religion, these topics that are polarizing. Like what Porte Parole does is they pick a topic and they go out and talk to people. They make little groups, including people that have divergent opinions, that people that are polarized, right, that have completely divergent opinions, and they sort of they create a discussion group for them, and they just watch, they listen, and they watch and listen, and they record the quotes, they record all of the lines of thought and lines of thinking and all of that. Pardon me, getting excited. I don't have my water. I just have my coffee. But they go out and gather snippets of conversations, lines of thought, and all of this stuff from people that are polarized around a particular subject. So what they've done here for the assembly, this version that's called Energy in Canada, what they did is they went out and talked to people that have wildly divergent opinions on energy. Then what they do is they write a piece of theater where actors play the part of those different people. So, for example, they played this play at the Calgary Petroleum Club. Right. At the Calgary Petroleum Club, a stage play reflects tension, polarization about Canada's energy transition. So they basically then play scenes back to a public, and they invite people to be in the public that are also polarized, and make it a kind of a dinner event where you're seated at a table with a small group of maybe 8 people, and there are people from all across the spectrum sitting with you, right? So that's part of the challenge, is then you're actually there with people with you are polarized, and you get to watch this production and then have your own little discussion. So it's a super interesting way of working that really resonated for me. So these are a few quotes from the Globe and Mail article. So when we do the assembly, what we're hoping is that just the contact with people who think differently are going to nudge us towards more intelligent conversation. We need more intelligent conversation around the energy transition. I fully agree. And it's not just a kind of altruistic, like, oh, we should all be nicer to each other, right? This is an interesting thread. And I don't know, personally, I get challenged by that. Like, I'm a pacifist, I guess. And I just sort of sometimes just hope that people would just sort of get along. And maybe often if I'm in a situation where there's like polarized views, I'll just kind of observe, not share my own thoughts. So it's interesting. And that's part of the fun, I guess, that I want to have in this energy sketch episodes, is like just sharing my opinion. And even there, I'm like, ooh, nervous. Like, who the hell wants to hear my opinion? Like, okay, well, interesting question. Who am I to give my opinion in this kind of like forum? Like, all this stuff kind of comes up for me. So this is the next part of Annabelle's quote here. We actually think that the sort of deterioration of public dialogue, so there's a deterioration of public dialogue, is having a negative impact on our activity in Canada, on our civil society, on our ability to educate kids properly. We believe that in face to face dialogue, people can be a little bit more sophisticated and nuanced, right? The need for nuance in the conversation about energy in Canada is super interesting. So, whoops, I'm hiding. Got to hide this stuff. Oh, I was just checking the time there. Should not have done that. I got an alarm for 12:48. So, if I leave subitement at 12:48, well, you'll know why that was. So, I want to dive into a few things here that I found interesting. So, um, again, they bring together people from across the spectrum. So they had a kind of pro energy CEO type personality. They had an indigenous woman who's also like working in her community, but concerned about the health impacts, because a lot of the Alberta oil and gas projects in the north are like right near, indigenous reservations, and like, they're downstream of these projects. There's water quality, air quality, wildlife impacts, all of this stuff, economic, like benefits or lack thereof for people in the local communities who were impacted by these projects. So they would have the energy denizens. All right, so this is one of the characters who plays a sort of pro energy person. So there's this and this is a real thing, the pro oil modern miracle network. I want to dive into this a little bit. Oil as a miracle substance. That's one thing I want to sketch on a little bit later. So this guy feels pilloried by other Canadians for toiling in an industry they insist has provided the country with wealth and convenience, right? Wealth and convenience from oil. Wealth and convenience, right? It's kind of like there's a thread there of this kind of like, just stop oil. Let's just draw some threads here. Just stop oil, right? If we stopped oil, and the backlash against that of like, well, if we just stopped oil completely today, like people wouldn't be able to heat their homes. We wouldn't have any fertilizers. We wouldn't be able to transport all of the food, goods, services around the world. People would die very rapidly if we just stopped oil today. That being said, we should have a managed transition plan, and we should be going rapidly towards a new economy based on abundant solar and wind resources. But this is a kind of polarizing statement right here. Just stop oil. We're just writing threads here. So we were here, we were talking about the wealth and convenience everyone takes for granted, right? We can still have these. We can still have wealth and convenience with, I'm going to call it renewable energy. Renewables. Renewables can still provide us with quality of life, wealth, abundance, and convenience. So those things do not intrinsically need to be linked only to fossil fuels. And this is coming to the thread also of metal fuels as a vector for harnessing, storing, and collecting and storing and trading and transporting the abundance of solar and wind energy. Both of those things are just solar energy. So let's just call it solar energy, right? The wind comes from solar, which heats different sides of the earth. Different regions of the earth get heated by the sun during the day, while others get cool at night, and therefore convection currents are created, with interact with the spinning of the earth and all that stuff. So wind energy is just solar energy. And oil and natural gas, fossil fuels are nothing more than million year old, I guess, disclaimer again, million year old stored solar energy that has been harnessed by biomass and, buried under layers and layers of the earth, compressed and converted into energy rich, energy dense hydrocarbons. Oil is nothing more than stored long solar energy, right? So oil is stored renewable energy. We could get this into the consciousness so we want to stop hunting for deposits of stored solar energy, and we want to transition to harvesting the same way that we here's another thread. Now we're getting excited here. Here's a thread. Gotta have a better way to collect threads. Hunter gatherers, right? We went from hunter gatherer. There was the great, transition of our lifestyle when we discovered agriculture. So we went from a hunter gatherer to harvesting, let's say, harvesting. So there's a thread here that this is like oil and gas, ONG exploration, let's call it. So what we want to do as a society is transition from, instead of oil and gas exploration, renewable energy harvesting. This is fun. Okay, I'm going to circle this here with a little color. The transition from a hunter-gatherer species where we were out there hunting and gathering wild plants and wild animals to domesticating those animals, domesticating plants, and then just, farming them. Of course, there were issues with that, and it was a bit of a trap. I mean, you can think about it in an evolutionary trap. There's no way we could go back now to being hunter-gatherers, right? Hunter-gatherer way of life can only support so many people in terms of density, right? So once we went down that road into the harvesting and agriculture, then it enabled us to scale up humanity and to open up new ways, new avenues, new jobs. It opened up spirituality, science, technology. There were people now that didn't have to be always going out to hunt and gather stuff. We could, develop knowledge, and all of this stuff was developed, as we evolved into harvesting of our food instead of hunter gatherers. And, what we want to do, there's a sort of a parallel here that we want to, instead of going out and hunting for our exploring, hunting, drilling, blasting, looking for these more and more rare and harder to find and more difficult to extract deposits of oil and gas around the world, we want to transition into setting up massive farms of solar panels, wind turbines, geothermal. Geothermal is kind of an exploration thing, which is a good thing also. But we want to be harvesting stuff. So there's a thread for a bit later. Let's get back to what we were talking about here. Wealth and convenience. Everyone takes for granted. Here's the next thing here. Executives of oil and gas say they get no credit for reducing environmental impact. So there's a thread there of low carbon, and I say that in sort of air quotes, low carbon oil and gas. Let's put this as a thread, low carbon oil and gas in heavy quotes, right, as they go about producing oil and gas. So there's a thread here. I mean, okay, give credit to the oil and gas producer companies for bringing in stricter efficiency, efficiency upgrades, being more, you know, shepherding better the resource, being more efficient and less emitting. But ultimately, right, you're doing some activity. Let's talk about, let's say, the oil sands, right? Um, there's some activity here that's like, I don't know, it could be like surface mining with a truck. It could be underground, pumping of like hot water, and then the stuff comes back. There's hydrocarbons that come out, right? This is a bit too. I'm way too zoomed in. That's what I got to do. Sorry about that. Here we go. So right. Ah, let's talk about this in the oil sands. Activity, extraction activity. It takes energy. There's an energy in, right, here. And then you do some, refining of the product. Refining, you've got some big things, some big, cyclones and big equipment. And then out comes your clean hydrocarbons, right? And also here, there's energy in, right? And then this thing gets shipped elsewhere. There's a boat with a little thing. This is the hydrocarbons. They get shipped and they get burned, and then the CO2 gets emitted, right? So the question is, right, of all the CO2 that gets emitted here, right, how much was like from the stuff that came in here? And I don't know, numbers I've seen is maybe like, I don't know, 10%. So like the oil and gas company is working super hard to reduce something that's only 10% of the total emissions, because most of the emissions is coming here at the end use of this thing. So, which is like, there's kind of a dynamic here. Like, we're going to keep producing here as long as there's customers on this side. So, it takes both in a sense. Sorry, there was a weak conclusion there. I'm not sure what the conclusion was. Well, essentially that, okay, good for you for reducing emissions from your processing, but let's focus on the real story where 90% of the emissions are coming at the end use. And who's responsible for those? Some would claim these as what we call scope 3 emissions, meaning that these emissions should be put on the books of the producer over here. The oil and gas producer should sort of put onto their books the emissions of their customers. And some would take umbrage at this approach. Oh my God, you can't see what I'm drawing here. There we go. Yeah, some would take umbrage at that. I think it's interesting. We do it as a company. When we sell a turbine, it goes on our books that year that we sell it. All of the emissions that will come from that engine in the next 30 years of its operational lifetime get accounted for and, declared publicly in our annual reports and in our sustainability reports. So, right, if we want to reduce those numbers, well, we need to work hard along with customers, along with partners, right? Yeah. So, right, this is all fine. We should be doing efficiency, but we should be transitioning to massive solar and wind farms that do get processed, right? Call this like some processing into stored energy. Let's call this, this is a metal pellet, or this is a piece of plastic. I mean, making plastics is a way of essentially sequestering, you could say, carbon, and these can be shipped to customers. So we got a little bit off track. That was the thread of the hunter-gatherer, right? We evolved from hunter-gatherer species into agricultural species, and this was the flourishing of Homo sapiens as a species and the development of science and all the wonderful things that we have in the world. And we can do the same thing. We can transition from a hunter-gatherer style of energy supplying us into a harvesting energy mindset. What time is it? 12:42. We got 6 minutes remaining. Okay. Well, on that front, I'd like to draw your attention to something that I am blessed to be part of, which is a collaboration between Siemens Energy and, yes, I work for Siemens Energy, and all opinions are my own. Hashtag disclaimer. So this is a Siemens Energy plus McGill co-production with Mr. Pascal Boudreau, PhD student, under supervision of Jeff Burke-Thorson in the Alternative Fuels Laboratory at McGill. Now, the idea here is that aluminum, yes, aluminum, that stuff that's in phones, that's in, bridges, that's a material. Generally, it's a material. You can see those bars of aluminum. You can buy it in pellets and rods and wires and all these things. The idea here, the breakthrough here, is that this thing here allows you to react aluminum with water to generate hydrogen plus heat that can be used to generate electrical power. So the idea is that this aluminum can be the new vector of wealth, convenience, prosperity. It can be the new oil and gas, right? So instead of in Alberta, instead of extracting, exploring, digging up, mining, pumping hot water underground, and adding hydrogen from natural gas to make oil and gas products, we can transition to a new energy economy where we install massive solar, wind, geothermal plants, and we pump out iron and aluminum metal as stored clean energy that is safe, non-toxic, inert to transport, and can then be beamed around the world to all of our potential customers around the world. For example, China, right? They are booming in coal-fired power, and they are booming even more in solar and wind. It's an incredible thing. Maybe in another live stream, we'll deep dive more into China. But if you want to decarbonize China, you're probably still going to have some coal-fired power plants. And the idea is that you could retrofit those power plants. Instead of burning coal, you could be burning iron. Let me write that here. Coal to iron, because right now we sort of say coal to gas as a vector of decarbonization, which is true, although depends how the methane is produced. If it's fracked and there's a lot of leakage, actually, like seen some studies that the carbon emissions when accounting for the entire supply chain of natural gas can be just as bad as coal. Don't quote me on that. Hashtag disclaimer, need to look into the details. But the way to go leapfrog, let's leapfrog over to a fully decarbonized energy supply that we could be just recycling over and over again in Alberta. There's a vision for the Alberta energy economy with a ramp down of oil and gas production in a managed transition way, retraining, retooling, shutting down operations and ramping up other operations that would be solar power, wind power, chemical processing, carbon capture, and metals production, iron and aluminum, and the eventual recycling of those things over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. So we're out of time for today's live stream. But maybe in a future live stream, we'll get more into the details of this nice little energy cycle here using aluminum as clean energy carrier. So there's our whiteboard of the day. And hey, this has been fun, folks. And you be well. How do I end this thing? I need my stream deck. I don't have my stream. There's few technical difficulties here and there, but we're all good. We are going to end the stream now. And thanks for tuning in, folks. Have a wonderful day. See you next time. We don't know when, we don't know how, but it'll probably be at 12:12 p.m. maybe sometime. You'll hear about it. Hit the like, hit the subscribe. Find me in the chat. Find me on LinkedIn. Love to connect with you. So be well. Toodaloo.